Hi Felicia, hi Felicia.
Mom,
Yes.
we have to record a podcast ad.
And what ad is that?
We're going to promote the podcast so we get more listeners. If somebody said to you, what's Hi Felicia about? What is it about?
Bull-
Our media diets.
Crapola.
For some reason, people really respect and honor our opinions because we watch it all. Did you finish Netflix yet?
Did I?
Check out the podcast. It's a mother-daughter relationship that's one for the books. So, Hi Felicia with Marnie and Felicia anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hi Felicia, bye Felicia.
Welcome to another episode of the And Both podcast. My guest this week is Sarah Blair. She is a mom and a pediatric OT who has done what so many women I know and so many mothers I know because of having a background in healthcare have navigated. And that is this idea of starting in a field and then becoming a mother. And what does it look like afterwards, especially when you work in a field that is dominated by women, that represents a lot of the systemic issues that are going on in terms of women working in fields that are dominated by women are typically not paid as well in that. So healthcare, and when I'm talking about allied health and teaching and things like those professions that involve care, and they involve compassion, and they involve empathy, and they involve all of these values that are internalized, and then, for lack of a better word, they are capitalized on by industry at the expense of the individual providing that service, those resources, that level of expertise. So this is a conversation that I don't think that we can have enough, because it is in so many areas and it is impacting women and mothers in so many ways. It is something that is at a core part of the problem around acknowledging motherhood and the impact that it has on you as the individual, and creating systemic change so that we don't continue to be stuck in these same cycles. So I also love having first-time podcast guests on, because I think that the more people that we have with all of these varied perspectives that are coming at this saying, hey, this is what I'm experiencing and I'm putting this out there, and these are the things that I am doing, and highlighting the things that you're doing. You don't need to be doing the things in order to be here, but for people that are trying to create change in their own way after having that experience, I love having them on. And so if you love the episode, as always, please rate, please leave a review, please subscribe and follow the show, because that helps us to get these conversations out, and they will land in places where the people who are looking to hear them will find them. And so with all of that, enjoy. Hello and welcome to the And Both podcast. Here we are going to hear from moms and those in motherhood that are doing the thing that works for them. They are honoring themselves alongside the all-encompassing role and level of expectation that is motherhood. And we are going to hear from as many different people as possible in their own experience. So you can find people to relate to. You can hear stories that will make you laugh, make you cry, all of the above. And that we will come together as a community to support one another in a way that is holistic and honoring of the woman and the mother as a whole. Hello and welcome back to the And Both podcast. I am here today with Sarah Blair. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Pumped. Always pumped to have another OT on the podcast, because there is a language of let's just figure it out as we go that exists among all branches of our field. And it's so lovely to hear, because as a founder and as a podcast host, there's a lot of talking to the wall that I end up doing, or talking to my dog, and he really doesn't want to participate in our team meetings. So yeah, rude. So rude. So welcome. I'm excited you're here. And how about you intro you? Tell people what they need to hear.
Yeah, my name's Sarah. I am here today to talk with Ashley and so excited because this is my first time on a podcast.
Yay.
So thank you for having me. I am an OT. I've worked in pediatrics for about 7 years and I became a mother 3 years ago Monday. And I am just working on figuring out who I am post that shift and loving it and finding it really difficult and transitioning and figuring it out. Just, one day at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one day at a time, one cold at a time, one whatever at a time.
Yes. One daycare phone call saying, your daughter puked, please come pick her up at a time.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, joy and pleasure. So what do you are you in peds? Are you still practicing in peds?
So I actually just at the end of July stepped away from a high stress position because I just needed to and have moved into a early intervention position. So I'm going into homes and seeing babies 0 to 3. But what's nice is I can make my own schedule and choose my hours and choose my caseload. So I found a lot more flexibility with that. But I've also been working with a tech startup, which has been really exciting, really rewarding, and is working towards solving some of those problems that I experienced as a clinician. So I'm really excited to sort of be working towards that type of goal, something that could be sort of for the greater good and keep clinicians in the field, which is my overarching North Star right now.
Yeah. I pretty sure there's been a couple of peds OTs on here, but I'm not entirely sure I've ever said this before. When I went to OT school, I intended to go into pediatrics because I shadowed a woman who was like one of those like wizards of pediatric OT where it's sort of like you didn't realize you were in therapy too as an adult. And it was just like you leave there and you're like, God, wow. Huh. And like just one of those like the Pied Piper of like pediatrics. And so I applied to OT school and said I wanted to be a pediatric therapist. Yada, yada, yada. I carry on this whole thing and we get farther along and she's like, you can help like learn all of these different aspects of it, right? And then I encounter the parents and I'm like, oh wait, no, I don't want to. I don't want to do this. Scared of the parents. I mean, I was also like, I hadn't gone to school yet and I was sort of figuring out, but I realized that as a pediatric therapist, every single person that you see is a child, but every single person comes with a person who lives and breathes every single second of their day, knowing everything that they possibly can about what you're doing, what needs to get done, what they're advocating for, all of this stuff. It's like every patient was a board exam. And I was like, I don't think, no. So then I went and worked with grownups, but man, peds OTs, you guys are hardcore.
Yeah, it is something. I love that. It does sometimes feel like, are you testing me? Are you, do you believe I know what I'm doing? And then I feel like often, I'm treating kids that are similar age to my child and parents that are similar ages to me. And when I see other people out there, I'm like, do you know as much about what you're doing as I know what I'm doing? Because that doesn't feel like much. So I do feel like, there's this level of skepticism about like, how much do you know? And I know there's imposter syndrome that comes in with that because, of course, I do know what I'm doing. I have been doing this for a while. I do get good success with my kids. I am able to make good relationships. But do I know what I'm doing? Have I ever done this before? Is it my first day? I have those thoughts. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to sort of balance that back and forth. But agreed, it's difficult knowing that your performance is being judged through every session by the family.
Yeah. And also too, like in that there is that dynamic being it's 1 to 2 really. Whereas with adults, you say, hey, can we work on this? Or how about we work on this? And they're like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. And sometimes the answer is that's sweet, but you have to have pants on to go down the hallway. So like we actually have to do the pants part now. But also, like when you're talking to them and you're asking them about activities and all of those pieces, they can explain that to you. Whereas kids are like, especially you're 0 to 3, right? It's like, okay. And they're like just blinking at you like that. That blows me away.
Oh, but they're so cute.
So cute.
So cute.
So,
Yeah, and I didn't find the kids part hard, and I didn't find the parents part hard either. It is easy for parents to trust someone that you can tell has their child's best interest at heart, even if maybe we're figuring it out together. So, every kid is a puzzle, and I'm going to do my very best to figure out how this puzzle works. And I think that I can, I build trust with parents so that they know that regardless of what today's session looks like or last session looks like, we're going to make progress and we're going to figure some stuff out. But the hard part is like the everything else that comes with the clinician position, the systems in place and the pressures in place, especially in larger systems where the flexibility that's needed to be a whole human is really hard to come by. And that's what I struggled the most with being an OT and a mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think too, a lot of the people that I have come across that are in that position, that was me too, for sure. Is that especially when you work in I think it's both too. You work in a profession that is dominated by women, right? So you work in a healthcare profession, teaching, things like that, where the dominant population that comes into that profession is women. So like I left my job, I didn't come back full time after maternity leave. So there wasn't like, it was sort of a quiet transition. But I came back to work per diem at the end of my maternity leave and someone was already sitting at my desk. So I left work when I went out to have my baby and came back and someone was sitting at my desk. And that wasn't a secret, right? It was like, there's a university 20 minutes down the road and they've got a program and they're pumping out graduates 75 at a time who want to stay in this area, who want to do this. Like there's a line of people behind you waiting to take your chair. And so it's like, what is you love your job and you want to do this job. And I loved working with the people that I worked with, the patients and all of that. But when I couldn't be there and be all of the things all of the time, it turned into, well, there's like 17, 25-year-olds behind you that don't have children, that don't have daycare, that don't have all of this going on. Like, sorry, like how are we supposed to have change happen at a systemic level when there's another person waiting to grab your spot?
Yes. And another person that is just as eager and excited and wanting to please as we were 8-10 years ago, that they bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and enthusiastic and have all the energy in the world and haven't yet seen what the systems look like. So, it's easy for them to put in all of their effort every day. And, they're using 4 years of effort in 1 year and then they're burning out. So it's just a cycle. So you can have these jaded and burnt out 33-year-olds, but it doesn't matter because we have the new grads coming in.
Yeah.
And they're
crazy.
So excited to be there. And of course they are, because it's so exciting to be there because you're finally doing what you wanted to do, which is help people, especially help kids. I always wanted to help kids from middle school. I thought I was going to be a doctor and be a pediatrician and then learn more about the process and decided that wasn't for me. But it was always, I love children and I want to help people. And I think that drive, that wanting to help people drive is something that is so female or women. It's ingrained in our culture that women are caring and carers. And it just makes sense. It feels like an easy fit that we would go into caring professions. But the women that are going into these caring professions are, well, I guess the people that are going to these caring professionals are often women and often young women and often women of childbearing age. So we have a transition, at least as I've seen it in my experience, that there is new professionals coming in, excited to work, but then they have a family and there's the priorities change and then they leave. And then there's these really smart, really driven women that could really do a really good job and can't because of the systems in place that don't support what we need.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. And you also too, like the trade-off is always, but you care, right? So it's that's always, not always is a terrible word to use, but it's often weaponized, right? So it's like, well, you care. This is such an important part of you that is ingrained in you that you have been searching to fulfill for 10 or 15 years as you've gone through school. Here's your salary. And it's like, but I really want to do this. And I know that if I go to like these 6 other peds options, inpatient, outpatient, hospitals, whatever it is, everything's kind of the same-ish. So I guess this is just what I do to be able to get a chance to do what I really want to do. And then that just sets up this whole train of the economic impact of it. And then that down the line makes these decisions. Sometimes it makes a decision for you in terms of like being able to make ends meet in all ways.
Isn't that something? And that's, something that I was thinking about earlier when thinking about coming on and chatting with you, is it is such an identity thing. Like it is like, this is who I am. It's not just what I do, but this is who I am. And then when it's like, when you stop being able to do it well because your plate is too full, it's not just, oh, I can't do this anymore because I have too many things on my plate. It's like my identity is being challenged and tested and failing. And it's really like, who even am I if I can't do this? Mm-hmm. And it's something really hard to wrestle with. When I came back after maternity leave, I think that I have, some context. I'm a Virgo and I'm an oldest daughter. So my whole life has been, this is how I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I'm going to do it. And I'm going to figure out how to do it. And I'll make, quick decisions and then I will stick to it. And I'm just going to follow through. And I've built this whole foundation on, this is who I am. And these are the things that I do. And I came back to work after maternity leave and was like, oh, my foundation is actually a house of cards. And it's worked for now, but it's being tested because I don't have anybody, I don't have the capacity to tend to my carefully constructed house of cards anymore because I am so busy caring for everybody else around me. My job is caring for children. My job when I get home is being a mom to my then infant. And I didn't have anybody that could take care of me in the way that I needed to be taken care of. And I think I needed that. Obviously, my husband is wonderful and he does everything that I need from him at home. But I had so much of my identity and myself into my work. And I didn't have anybody caring for me like I needed to be cared for there. And that's on me because that's not their responsibility. However, it is so difficult to say, I think that's just a really difficult thing because our compassion is what makes us good at our jobs, but it's also can be so detrimental because we're just going to give and give and give and give until there's absolutely nothing left and there's burnout. And that's just really hard to come back from.
Yeah. And I think too, the other part is like, we have an expectation to care. I mean, I'm speaking as an OT, but you are driven into this field or you find this field or this field finds you, however it happens, because there is a level of caring and compassion and wanting to understand and wanting to help and all of that. Right. So like, that's the lens that OTs see the world through in whatever capacity that you practice. The problem is, I feel like what happens is once you require the level of compassion and care and understanding that you give to the world, you realize that all these things are not the same. And all like, I can think about a way to make all of these things come together, but I'd need somebody else who's on that, I need somebody else in that team. And that it sounds like that was work, and work was like, yeah, no, we don't like bottom line 401k, do like clipboard moment. And you're like, no, but like there's a human at the end of this, right? And like I am the human and I want to come back to work, but I am different now. And they're like, sorry, we only take the new grad model. That's it. We don't want version 2. We just want version 1. And if you have graduated onto version 2, congratulations. Good for you. Great. Could you move? Because we got like another one in the back who is still like fresh on theory, fresh on this. So like, and this is the other part that I never understood, is that in any hands-on clinical work, wouldn't you value the fact that you can say to somebody who's been in that field for like 5 or 10 years, who has seen the stuff, who has learned the stuff and has a toolbox that looks like one of those ones in a mechanic shop and not the little like lunch pail, like, hey, can you go in there and do that? Versus the new grad who's like, I went to school, I learned this, and I've seen this, and is building their toolbox. This is not to disparage the new grad. It's to say like, they don't know that they are in the spot that they're in until they get into the clinic. And so it's to say like, they don't have the place that you work doesn't have that same level of compassion or care, and they don't have to. And that's the problem, because you're missing out on knowledge. You're missing out because the people that are impacted by that are the kids that come into your clinic.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Like I worked with some brilliant women that have been doing this job for a long time. And there weren't many of them. And they were usually PRN or part-time, because that's just, how life takes them. But they were dealing with the same issues that I was dealing with. And you would think that, it's productivity and it's documentation and it's, being judged on things that you don't have control over, like if your patients come to therapy and they're still having these same problems, and they've been doing this 20 years, 30 years. And it's like, you should have this level of renown where these pressures are lessened and your pressures or your responsibilities are on, education and providing really top-notch care to the children that are coming in to see you, and not, how many visits can you churn out? Because we're missing out on that wisdom of lived experience that these women, and I'm saying women because I literally worked with 99% women, but they just have these vast experiences that other people are unable to tap into, because everyone is so busy with their heads down, just trying to figure it out. When, there could be a model where we're able to share those experiences, but something has to change, because there has to be time to do that.
Mm-hmm. And is that what you're working on now in tech? Is that?
It's not.
No.
So I'm currently, but I do love that. Great idea. Maybe that's my next. So yeah, I mean, leaving, I said at some point, like, I really just need to figure out how to keep good people in the field, because there's people that want to do this work, but are so burnt out that they don't even have the compassion left in them. Like a former coworker who also left said, it didn't matter if I saw 2 kids or 9 kids. I came home and I was exhausted. And it doesn't matter, how much energy you're expending. If you go in and you're just constantly feeling like you're not quite good enough, that is so exhausting. So my big thing was, how can we make this easier? And how can we make it so there's not just all of these daunting, overarching pressures that are constant. And for me, that was documentation. So I found a tech company. It's small and amazing. It's called AutoMind. And I've been working with them for about 6 months, and they're doing generative AI for clinical documentation. And it's really just it's really slashing the time that clinicians need to spend on their notes. So instead of doing it after kids go to bed or staying late to try to finish it, or it just not getting done, it's done in 2 minutes and can mostly be done like when you're with the patient. So that's what I've been working on. And I'm excited to be able to take one of those problems that's just so prevalent in like every setting and try to affect some change there and make it easier for clinicians to do their jobs so that there isn't that need to, well, feel shame and guilt about all of the stuff that you still need to do, but don't have energy to do.
And I mean, I'm just going to sing the praises of OT from the rooftops for the rest of my life. Like, not only do you go into work and you try and work with the caseload that you have, but it's that idea of like picking your head up and looking around and going, wait, like I can work in that realm, but I'm looking around the office and we're all working through our lunch and we're all like trying to figure out when we're going to get our notes done. And we're all scrambling through the day. And there's a certain amount of like, not that you can't be present for the entire session, but there is that like churn in the back of your head of like, oh, I've got to remember this and oh, I've got to do that, which I mean, I don't know, mom life too, but it's that like that constant running and running and running of everything that you're trying to impact at a level above and above and above. You OT, you.
Yeah. You OT, just try to do good.
You friction finder.
Yeah, it's just like I get more context. I was never a good documenter. I'm not a good documenter. I don't think I'm good at it. I understand that there is value to it. However, I don't think that the way that it's currently set up, there often is value to it because of the quality, because of the capacity. And that's nothing to do with the quality of the therapists who are writing them, because again, we're in the system where everything is so fast and so there's so much pressure and there's not set aside time that is actually doable. But I would sit down and do my notes and be so frustrated because it's like, I don't remember. I don't know. I know that I already did this whole thought process when I was with the child and I spoke it out loud and I coached the parents and I did a good job. But I don't know. I can't remember everything that I said to you. And so there's also this friction with like, I know I did a good job then and I want to do a good job now, but I know I'm not going to do a good job because I can't remember. I did it, 8 kids ago and I can't remember everything that I did. So it's like, I know I'm not doing as good of a job as I could be doing if I had been able to get all of this out of my head during the session. And it's not, with kids, when you're running around with them, it's not easy to have a laptop out in front of you to document. So it has to wait till later. Mm-hmm. And if you have back-to-back kids, then you have back-to-back kids and there's no time to write your notes in between. So I have all of this thought process happening during the session. And when I go back to write it down, it's like, this is redundant and I know I'm missing parts. So it's like, on top of not enjoying this process, I know I'm not doing it well. And that just is so hard for me to come to terms with.
Well, and that's the part too, is that if you are, a supervisor or you are insurance or whatever, that's the only thing that they see of you. And so there's that knowledge in the back of your head of like, in the session, it was amazing. In the session, I did this, this, and this. But if I only get down on paper part of it, then that person who makes the decisions about reimbursement, about, number of sessions that they'll pay for, all of that is going, what? Like, and a lot of times that's not even read by a clinician, which that's a whole other situation.
That's a different problem.
That's a different problem. That is a whole other podcast. But I think too, like the crossover in that is it's that same mentality of like, when you have a new baby and you're home and you go through your entire day and you never stop moving and your things are going, all of this stuff. And at the end of the day, the house looks exactly the same. you feel exhausted and you're like, what did I even do today? If everything looks the same, but I have not stopped moving, like, am I doing a good job? And it's that like the ball is always moving. And if you stop and look on the outside, you can't understand what is happening on the inside. That I think is the motherhood carryover here.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That even though being able to find that internal comfort in knowing that you're doing a good job for the people that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Also knowing that you have that external judgment is always going to be present. And knowing like this needs to be good because there are people who judge my performance on it. And knowing that, yeah, I think absolutely.
Because of what happens, right? If you think too, like in our own, if you're talking about these professions that are dominated by women, you have that expectation at work, that expectation when you have kids, that expectation out in the world. It's like, when in the hell are we ever going to get a damn break?
Mm-hmm.
Like when is it ever going to be I mean, the answer is never, but when is it ever going to be like all of the cards align or the house of cards finally gets glued? It's not actually just teetering. Somebody glued the thing. Someone put up a popsicle stick so the whole damn thing doesn't fall down. We're all just running around looking for the popsicle stick. And I don't know who's
And
holding
where
it.
is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's missing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the OTs were probably trying to do it with pipe cleaners.
Probably.
Maybe that's a little bit better, but it's still pretty wobbly.
Mm-hmm. It is. I could run this metaphor all the way over town.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to because you have to find a bunch of mismatched ones because there isn't actually like a good supply of them in your fine motor closet.
Yes. Yes. And half of them have already been used, but that's just all you have. So you have to put it together. And then maybe there's a button stuck on the end of it so that it gives it a little more anchor. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fine motor all day long. Blocks, everything. No, it's just, and I think that too, like that is so much of what, like how much of ourselves in motherhood carries over into like when the two worlds look so different on the outside, but they're not really different on the outside when you talk about like the clinical work and the OT health being professions, all of that. And the motherhood piece, it's like you don't get the acknowledgement and you don't get the like good job and you don't get any of that in either capacity, but you keep pouring out because you care. And everyone comes along and is like, well, this doesn't look right. Or like you forgot to, check this box when you submitted this. So the whole thing gets kicked back to you. And you're like, yeah, but there was like 100 other boxes that I checked.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel like when you're pouring all of yourself into various buckets and someone comes and like starts poking holes in your bucket, it's just deflating. Everything spills out. It's like, well, okay, let me keep trying.
Right?
Duct tape on that. And I feel like wouldn't it be so nice if it just felt like it was enough?
Yeah. Well, and wouldn't it be nice if people just saw how much or acknowledged how much you were doing just trying to approximate enough? Because really, in all honesty, it's always enough. And that's the part that's the part that's getting left out. And that's the part that like people are trying to achieve enough. But I mean, enough is somebody cries and you pick them up. Enough is somebody gets in the car and you buckle their seatbelt. Enough is an often achieved thing. However, the perception of enough changes. So like what a good mom is, or what a good clinician is, or all of that is, are they safe? Are they like healthy, taking care of all of that stuff? Not healthy, but like, do you meet their needs?
Yes.
That's enough. So like, let's just put the enough place where the enough belongs and everything else over top of that. Like enough as a parent is not a private piano tutor at the age of 2. That's not enough. That's at another level. That's a different podcast. You are not going to find that here. If you have a private piano tutor at 2, I love that journey for you. And I fully support you in realizing your piano prodigy dreams.
Absolutely.
I can't play the recorder, so
No.
I cannot identify. It is a difficult thing. But yeah, that's the part that I like. I want people to. I wish for people that we would acknowledge that it's that you are enough, right? Like every time you see that pop up on your social media feed, or you see that like someone puts it on a billboard, or there's some commercial on TV about it around the Olympics, and moms like supporting their kids when they can't like tie their skates and all that stuff. Like you're always doing enough because you care. And if you just give yourself the credit for that, how much pressure does that take off? Like how much does that deflate that expectation that comes in externally? If you're like, nah, I'm doing enough. Like,
Yeah. And what does that even look like? And what does that feel like? And how do you do that? How do you reconcile that what you're doing is actually enough? And I haven't learned that yet, but it's something that I'm trying to, what I'm trying to impart in other people too. Like, don't get yourself as burnt out as I did. Don't let yourself get that far. Take care of yourself and your baby first, and the rest of it really doesn't matter because, I can see that you're doing enough. I can see that you are doing a wonderful job, but, flipping that onto myself is difficult. And I think that, this is, motherhood can be so isolating, especially in the US, and having these experiences and not knowing how or what you're doing. And I mean, there could be so much shame and guilt and feelings of inadequacy and isolation. And just, I feel so glad when I am able to express these things out loud, because I know I have people that look up to me, and I don't want them to think that I haven't, struggled through every step of this, because it has been really hard for me and I'm still figuring it out. I don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. I'm just figuring it out. But I don't want them to think that, oh, Sarah did it and it was so easy for her, because it was really, 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 really hard. And I was really, really, really sad for a couple years and really hurt and feeling like I didn't know who I was anymore. And I think that knowing that I can see that in other people. I can see other people going through that. And I don't think that I recognized that it wasn't an uncommon thing that women go through during the first few years of motherhood. It just rocks your perception of reality, because you think you know who you are and you think you know what matters to you. And you can envision what you'll look like as a mother. And then when it happens, it's not like, that your priorities are going to shift, and that your energy is going to be spent elsewhere. But I don't think I recognized how much I would need there to be someone else there that asked me what I needed and then was motivated to figure out how to make that happen.
yeah. And I think too, like the knowing what's coming, but not necessarily knowing what's coming, knowing that something is coming and being able to say, okay, there is going to be a difference at the end of this. I know for sure there's going to be a difference, but understanding that the evolution of you is not something you can undo following motherhood. And I think that's the problem, is that when you get one of the problems is that once you get through that, however you become a mom, and all of a sudden you can no longer have tunnel vision around your career. You can no longer have tunnel vision around anything because someone took the blinders off, and now you only see everything else around you. You have a lens through which you watch the news. You have a lens through which you go to work. You have a lens through which you have a relationship. And all of those pieces are all layered together. It's like what is that? An X-Men? Stay with me here on this one.
I'll right here.
You remember the guy in X-Men who has the laser eyes?
Sure.
Right? And he So he's got the laser eyes, and whenever he looks at things, they all get like, it all gets burned and all this stuff, right? And it's like too powerful. Yeah, I love it for him. Too powerful. So they put sunglasses on him.
Oh,
And
yes.
he can't light up the world, right? I feel like when you become a mom, you are that person with no sunglasses. And
Love that.
yeah, I know, right? We are not going to just like make this all about the super heavy duty research here. Sometimes we're going to throw an X-Men. I don't even know if it's X-Men. It's one of the ones, whatever.
I just Googled it because I didn't know. It's Cyclops from X-Men. You did a great job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's the idea, right? It's like you can't, like, once you take the blinders off or once you take the sunglasses off, you're not going to put them back on.
Yeah. Why would you?
Can't. Yeah, why would you? Knock down a whole forest if you want.
Do cool shit now.
You can do cool shit. Same as motherhood. You do cool shit. You made a person, or you brought a person into your home, a whole human. You brought a person into your home. They arrived here either via you, via someone else, via whatever. There's a million different ways you can become a mom. But now you realize, like, hold on a second. I got like an 8-pound, 10-pound, whatever human being with like all sorts of things going on that I got to like burn down the forest for if I need to.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
and
wasn't on my to-do list, but I could do that.
If you insist.
Yeah.
And I think that it feels like that's always been within me. Like,
yes.
if there is a problem and that I can't easily fix, I probably am just going to burn it down.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe burning it down and starting over is the right way. And maybe with, healthcare systems, a little bit of that, just some like light arson would be good. Like, with maybe we've taken the metaphor too far.
Of policies, not places.
Absolutely.
There we go.
We are talking metaphorically. What if we just rethought the whole thing?
Yes. What if we just scratched it all and said, you know what? We did a really mediocre job the first time around, and we realized that it only benefits this, and this category. And now we're going to scratch it and start all over again and realize that the evolution of people is not women work in healthcare and they love to be helpers. So we don't pay them enough because we don't value it economically, but we do value it from every other angle. We just won't pay them for it. And they can have the knowledge that they did a good job, although we're never going to tell them they do a good job often enough for them to feel like they did a good job. Mm-hmm. And that will suffice. And we've done the same thing in motherhood, right? Like we have the childcare crisis in this country, the healthcare crisis in this country, all of these pieces that impact women, impact everybody, but impact women and women's health and maternity care and all of that stuff. Like neither of these things are working out real well. So why not just scratch it and start over again?
Why not? It could be so fun.
It could be amazing. And I think too, like there's so many people out there that do care. And instead of saying, let's put $1 on that, or let's put a productivity marker on that, let's instead say, okay, how would you do it differently? And I think that when people do that, I think, there's a healthcare crisis right now in this country in, 11 billion different ways. Like there's not enough caregivers to care for the people who are reaching age 65.
Yeah.
By the time we hit 2030, there's going to be more people over the age of 65 in this country than there are children. So who's going to take care of these kids? Mm-hmm. We have to, there's programs in place. I'm sorry. We're not going to like have everyone's grandma and grandpa become the care providers for children in this country. It doesn't make sense. And it's also not like realistic. Like it's not. And so how do we build programming and how do we create opportunities that make it safe and affordable for people to find care for themselves, care for their children, care for their elders? Like it's all connected. And I don't know. I feel like the conversations are just so like compartmentalized and it's really like, hand plus elbow equals arm.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't need to be a CHT to know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's this cool app called Dovetail.
Really?
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah, it's in the care tech space. It really just goes right to what you were talking about and coordinating all those pieces. But I completely agree. Like there's these huge numbers of people that are going to need care really soon. And there's a Facebook group which has more than 50,000 people in it, full of clinicians that are trying to transition away from being caregivers.
Unbelievable.
Because it's just not that mismatch is going to be really, really, really difficult. They're all of the carers who have felt like our compassion has been weaponized against us, can't do it anymore and have to leave. But there's so many people that are going to need care.
Yeah.
And how are we, I can't emphasize enough what you said. Like it's not going to work. How are all of those pieces going to work when there are no systems in place to support all of the different pieces?
Mm-hmm. And especially when families are the largest provider of long-term care in this country already. People who don't get paid to care.
Yeah.
So when you talk about like value of care and value of time and all of that, the economic impact, it's big.
It's huge.
It's like 1.4 trillion. The economic impact of care in this country, if the current systems that aren't working continue on, I think it's by 2040 or 2050 is $1.4 trillion.
Unreal. You can't even fathom
unreal.
that amount of money.
No.
Like, that's just like absolutely insane.
Yeah. I mean, the care economy, the industry around care is $128 billion bigger than pharmacy in America.
Mm.
And like everyone loves pharmacy, right? It's like pharmacy's all over the TV. Why isn't care all over the TV? Why don't we talk about these programs? Why don't we have this all in place for people to be able to do that? Ooh, question.
I know. It's patriarchy. Yeah. Because
Patriarchy for 200, Alex.
Yes. Caring is done by women, and it's just not been valued the same way that the cool shit that pharmacists do with chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Because science is for men.
Yeah.
That in research, yep. That again is sarcasm and the patriarchy, not my actual thoughts. Disclaimer.
Big old asterisks on this episode.
Yes, big old
By the way.
We are feminists here.
Yes. And so how do you see in the idea of like, let's scratch this, right? Like in terms of like the OT, the peds OT setting and the healthcare setting and all of this, like if you could go back in time, not too far, but if you could go back in time and you come back from maternity leave and your world has just been rocked in a good way, right? Like you've got all these different responsibilities and different things to think about. What would be the thing that would have made the difference for you to say, okay, this is really hard. This adjustment, this transition, this shift is really hard. But because this exists or because these pieces exist, I know that I am in the right space. I am confident that I can move forward in a way that works for me.
Yeah. I don't know that I have a great answer. I can tell you what I think I needed. I think I needed flexibility, and I needed someone to say that, we're going to figure out a schedule that works for you. We'll be able to play with it because your sanity matters. And we know that when you are well, you're going to provide better care for your patients. So having some ability to have some flexibility. And I did feel like, and all of this to say, the people that I was speaking to are wonderful, lovely people who do really good work and are stuck within systems that are really difficult to work around. But I felt like the option was always available to go down in hours or to go PRN. But then it felt like I was going to be sacrificing the specialty areas that I had grown to love and been working in, or it felt like, I could go PRN, but you'd have to, your hours might not be guaranteed, or you wouldn't necessarily be able to work in the spaces that you have wanted to work in. And, there's these pieces of it that I'm going to be sacrificing the things that I do like about this job. And if I don't even have those, what's the point? And there was a part of me that was still clinging on to that identity of, I need to feel like I need to feel like I've found my spot here. And I need to feel like I have some real value in this space. And I think that that's the piece that was really hard for me. I didn't feel like what I had brought to this role was as valuable as I thought it was. And I think that was really hard. And I know, like, if we're talking system level, processes level, it goes all the way up to the payer and the minimal reimbursement we get, or everything is just so interconnected. And if I'm not there seeing kids, then the money's not coming into the hospital. And then if the money's not coming into the hospital, we can't support our team members. So there's so many pressures from everybody all the time to see more kids and be fully available. And it isn't set up to support mothers who might need to work a Wednesday instead of a Monday.
Mm-hmm. I think too, there's a really strong history of like, but that won't be me, that goes into this. Like, there's that belief, right? There's a belief in motherhood, and there's a belief as somebody who goes into a healthcare or caring profession, but that won't be me. I'll be able to do it all. And it's like, how many decades of this are we going to watch people before us do? Are we going to experience ourselves? Are we going to watch somebody come in who is just a PRN for now, who's looking at your desk? How many of those people are going to come in and say, well, that won't be me?
Yeah.
When I did my level 2s, my supervisor, there's a whole thing, but my supervisor on my level 2 in acute care in a massive hospital in Boston said to me, I think on the second or third day, I was married. I got married young, and I was married, and she said, "Oh, are you going to be one of those that like graduates and like gets pregnant?" Like, I wasn't going to like do my time in the mix of it. She was like, "You're not going to like be one of those." And I was like,
that's a really personal question.
yeah, where do we leave this? Where do we start? Where do we, but it's this idea of like, are you going to be in it and like be hardcore about this? Or are you going to just like go and have a baby?
Yeah. And I mean, there are women that can do it all. And I think like, they can work full time and have kids. And let me reframe that. There are women who do it all.
Yes.
There are women that that they have 3 kids and that they can work full time. So why can't that be me? But I just don't know that. I don't think that that's the way it should be looked at. I don't think that's healthy. Why is that the standard? Why isn't the standard what is best for you? And how can we make your priorities come to be? Like, if you want to continue your career and you want to continue progressing in your career because it's important to you, why can't you do that while being a mom?
Mm-hmm. And also too, I think too, we also have to acknowledge like this stuff is a lot of these conversations are happening when people have kids that are neurotypical, kids that are, developing, like hitting all of their targets and their milestones. So let's add in another layer of like, what if you have like the story not that long ago about the woman who was adopting a baby and the baby was born prematurely and she got fired. I can't remember the name of the company, and that's a lawsuit if I get it wrong. But, it's that idea of like, we're here, we're creating this inclusive policy, yada, yada. But like, oh, your kid went into the NICU for 3 months and now we just have to like move on. You're like, well, I totally saw this coming. Or like, what if your kid has to have OT, speech, PT services 3 times a week
Yeah.
and you have a job that's like, sorry, we can't. The flexibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like how do all of the kids that I see, how do their parents manage this? Like how do they, I do think you can really get in the weeds and then get kind of sad about about
Mhm.
it, because it's all hard. It's
Mhm.
just hard. And then, like you said, everyone's trying their best. And then from the outside, maybe it doesn't look like you're doing anything, but like acknowledging that I'm giving everything I got
Mhm.
to all of these different areas.
Yeah. So let's start telling people they're doing enough.
I
And
I think that's it.
yeah, start reminding people they're doing enough and that people are, relying on external markers of enough and thinking about the message, where that message is coming from and what's the intention behind that message. Is the intention behind the message to sell you something? Is the intention behind the message to get you to do something? Is the intention behind the message to get you to give up another part of you? Your time, your space, your health, your energy. Who's telling you and why does that person have a right to tell you whether or not you're doing enough?
Yeah. Do think the motivations are really important. And how do you trust when someone tells you that you're doing enough?
Mm,
I think there's a culture piece around it too. It's not just the words, but okay, then how do things actually shift when I'm being told that I am doing enough? Am I still going to continue to be asked to do more?
yeah.
Is my performance review going to suffer because you said I was doing enough, so then I stopped doing the extra stuff, so then I didn't get
Mm-hmm.
good marks on my report card? You know, I
Speaking of someone who has had very few performance reviews that have gone, uh,
yeah, it's just, like if this is enough, let's make it enough.
yes,
Let's actually have it be enough. And and then I do think like there's so much built on how girls and are raised too. Cause like, sure, maybe a B is enough. A B is good, but you actually do have to get an A, and you actually do have to do all the extra credit, and you actually have to do more, or it isn't going to be enough, even if enough is enough. And so I do think like I, there's these highly capable, high achieving girls that are molded into doing machines and didn't learn how to do a little bit less.
yeah,
And maybe doing your best doesn't actually mean doing everything you can possibly do every single time to the detriment of your own sanity.
yeah. Because what happens is when you take that girl and you make, you mold her into this productivity machine, and then she has a baby, and she realizes, or she, adopts a baby or whatever, and she realizes, holy cannoli, I am tired. I'm tired of this. This is where my energy is. This is what I want to do. And that's not to say like you quit your job and you just like kick up whatever. And if you do, kudos also.
Yeah.
But like that, it's that idea of like the blinders being taken off, right? Because like good is productive, good is achieving, good is good is good is good. And it's like good is fed, good is changed, good is like a walk, good is hydrating. God, let's not undervalue hydrating.
Why is
Like
it so hard?
yeah, enough is basic needs.
And and you have to do those.
Yes.
Like you do need to. You can't try to do more and more and more without doing the hydration part
Mm-hmm.
because it's all going to fall down.
Yeah, that's your house of cards.
Yeah.
All
exactly.
those basic needs are the popsicle sticks
Yeah.
and the pipe cleaners and all of that. That's what you need. The house of cards is whatever it is, but it's built on a foundation of you taking care of yourself in every aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do we teach the younger generation to do it better than we did?
Mm-hmm. And it's creating these systems. It's simplifying documentation so therapists aren't like going a million miles an hour and having stuff run through their head while they're trying to have a conversation with their kid at the end of the school day.
Yeah. So they don't have to do it at the dining room table or after the kids go to bed. So they actually have a minute
Mm-hmm.
to take a walk or hydrate.
So then they will stay there and they will do that job and they will make an impact on all these other lives and their profession grows and their journey continues.
Yeah, because their brains haven't turned to sludge.
Yes. Or they haven't just hit the top of the cup and they're like, you know what? Done. Thank you. See you later. Like what's on the other side can't be worse than how I feel right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's the
That's
unknown, right? Like, yeah, don't go into the dark wood and you're like, listen, the light sucks. So like, I'm going to just stroll in there. And if I can't find myself a monster that doesn't know how to tear this all apart, here we go. A lot of metaphors this time around.
Yeah. I
Really
do like
this.
that. And if you do find a monster and you're not able to get him on your side to tear it all down with you, you can just take off your sunglasses.
Win. That's a win right there. Tying it all together. Who doesn't have a good pipe cleaner? I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, I thank you so much for coming on today. I just love the conversation around how do you make it better, not just for you, but how do you make it better for everybody else? And it's not your responsibility to make it better for everybody else, but if that's the vessel and the vehicle and the avenue where it impacts you in the way that you get to say, this is who I am and this is how I identify and this is the impact I'm going to have, then amazing.
I thank you so much for having me. It's been such a great conversation. I've had a blast. And I just, being able to transform your identity within your own brain is so hard. And I think having a greater purpose has been what has allowed me to make that shift into a place that is healthier for me. And I'm so grateful to be able to share the little bit that I've learned as I'm still very much in the middle of it.
Yeah, the middle is the best place to share from because all of those like success stories after don't really help people who are like walking on the hot coals currently. Yeah. I love it. Well, I'm going to also put in the information about the startup in the notes because I know that we've had guests on that are in the healthcare profession and we have guests that are coming up that are in the healthcare profession. So I'm sure every one of them can identify with being able to be done with their documentation. It's a bear. Not the one in the woods, but it is the one that's walking next to you. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Ashley. It's been wonderful.
Hey, it's Ashley. I'm interrupting your weekly episode of the And Both podcast to let you know that the And Both community is launching on November 29th. It is going to be a space for podcast guests, podcast listeners. I'll be in there to meet and connect directly with each other, to learn from each other, to share resources, to share stories, to share experiences. The podcast started because I wanted to create a community of more authentic versions and stories of motherhood than what is being shared commonly these days. And so this is the next step. I hope that you'll join me inside. We launch on November 29th. If you want more information, you can head to andbothpodcast.com to learn more there.